Hi, my name is Kevin Jones, and this is the Running Code Security chapter of the Java Virtual Machine Security class from Pluralsight. In this chapter, we'll delve more into how we manage the security of code and how we define the permissions the code has and requires to run. So we'll be taking a look at Java Platform Security, and in particular, the architecture and syntax of the policies that we need to use to execute code. We'll also look at how we can sign code. So we saw in the previous module that we can specify permissions based on where code is loaded from. We can also specify permissions based on who created the code and who signed the code. So we'll see how we do that, how we can sign the code, and how we can specify those permissions. And we'll also take a look at custom permissions. So the JDK comes with a set of built-in permissions that we can use. But suppose we need other permissions for our own code. So we'll see how we can do that. So just to recap, in the first module, we saw that Java security was built on these three things: permissions, policy, and enforcement. We also saw that we can specify Security Manager in one of two ways. So if we require security to be used, we have to load our application with a Security Manager, and we can either specify the Security Manager on the command line, or we can load a Security Manager in code. So the one thing we touched on briefly in the first module, and we just cover it in a little more depth here, is where do these security checks actually happen? Something has to say, is this code allowed to execute? Typically, this happens in some library code. So we could call the security check, or often libraries that we use make these security checks. And the JDK is full of these sort of checks. So for example, if we take a look at the sources that we can download now from the JDK, this is from the file input-stream.java class that's part of the Open JDK. And we can see here the construct of a file input stream tries to get a reference to the security manager. So we call system.getSecurityManager. If a security manager has been loaded, so we've either specified on the command line we want a security manager, or indeed we've created one inside our application, then this returns a non-null value. So we have a security manager, and at that point, we call check read. And it's this check read call that checks if this code has permission, in this case, to read from a file. If it doesn't have that permission, it throws an exception. In the next module, we'll take a look at policy, at how the policy file is implemented, and the details that go into the policy file.